Morning students, welcome you to this class. Students of standard 8, I welcome you to this class. We have been studying about the tribal communities living in different parts of India. I have also told you that the reason why these tribal people started fighting against the British government, the main reason was the tax or the revenue which was imposed on these tribal peoples, and because of which these tribal peoples uh, found it very difficult to pay the high revenue to the British government. As a result, they started taking money from the moneylenders. They fell into the trap of the debt. They were tortured by the jamindars. So as a result, many of the tribal peoples, they started losing their lands, they became simply a landless laborer. It made them to rebel against the British government. So these Santhal Revolt, which was started in the state of Jharkhand. These Santhal people mainly lived in Chota Nagpur Plateau, in Jharkhand, Bihar, and West Bengal. So this Santhal rebellion started in Jharkhand, and especially this Santhal revolt was fought in the Bankura district and Purulia districts of the Bengal and Jharkhand. The main leader of this revolt was the Sidho Murmu and Karnu Murmu. The revolt was fought in the year 1855 and 56. And as I told you, this revolt was mainly fought against the Jamindars, the British officers, and the moneylenders. So Sidhu and Kanu Murmu, it says that history says that they were brothers. Sidhu Murmu and Kanu Murmu, they were brothers. They were uh, born in Bhognadi of in a place called Bhognadi in Sahibganj districts of Jharkhand. Sidhu Murmu and Kanu Murmu, born in a Santhal family, they were brothers and born in Bhognadi and of Sahibganj district in Jharkhand. Sidhu Murmu was born in 1815 and Kanu Murmu was born in 1820. Sidhu and Kanu Murmu also had uh, uh, two more brothers and two sisters. So in the family of these six, Sidhu Murmu and Kanu Murmu, they led this revolt. They were very much concerned about their tribal peoples. And this Sidhu and Kanu Murmu, they called these Santhals people to join together, and there were around 10,000 Santhal people joined this Sidhu and Kanu Murmu, and they led this fight against the British government. And it says that history says that initially this Santhal rebellion, these people, they were defeating the British authorities. So when British authorities they found it difficult to defeat these Santhal people, they found out a new way to attack these Santhal people. When these Santhals, this group, Sidho Murmu and Kanu Murmu, and they are all the people were hiding in a forest. These British officers, they camped. They stood just at the foothill of a hill, and at the British officer, British ordered his army to fire without putting bullets in the guns. So after hearing the fire, this all the when the Santhal people, when this Sidhu and Murmu and Kanu Murmu and they are all the followers, they came out, and this officer again commanded the army to shoot, and this time with the bullets. So in this around 10,000 Santhals people, and along with them Sidhu and Kanu Murmu also died. It says that Sidhu Murmu was arrested and he was hanged on a banyan tree at Panchkatia, a place called Panchkatia. The Sidhu Murmu was hanged on a banyan tree. So that was the end. Finally, this Santhal rebellion was suppressed by the British officers. Then we see the Kharwar rebellion. The Kharwar tribes lived in the region of Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha, and Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. The reason for the Kharwar rebellion was the rent imposed upon them by the British. The Bhagirath Manjhi led the revolt. We see this almost in all the revolt. The main reason was the tax which was put upon these tribal people. Next we see the coal revolt. This coal revolt, they lived in the Chotanagpur region. The coal people lived in the Chotanagpur region. The first phase of the revolt, this coal revolt was fought in two phases. The first phase or the first part of the revolt was fought against Raja Porhat. Now, the British officers asked the Raja Porhat to pay annual tribute to them. So, because Raja Korhad was the king of the coal people, and therefore these British officers, they demanded the annual tribute from Raja Korhad. So, Raja Korhad, he asked his coal people, his people, especially these people were called as the hosts. So Raja Porhat, he asked his people, host people, to give the tax to Raja so that Raja can pay the annual tribute to the British officer. So when these British officers sent their people to collect their tax from these host people, the host people rebelled against the British officers and against Raja Porhat, and this was the reason why this rebellion was fought. Finally, this rebellion was suppressed by the British officers because of their big army and the sophisticated the weapons. Next, we see the Munda rebellion. Munda rebellion is one of the important revolt which was fought in the history of India. Munda tribes lived in the Jharkhand and adjacent part of Odisha, West Bengal, Bihar and Chhattisgarh. Munda people lived in the parts of Jharkhand, Bihar, Chhattisgarh and the West Bengal. Munda rebellion was first revolt against the British. Its history says that Munda rebellion was the first revolt fought against the British government. That was the first revolt in the history of India which was fought against the British government. Tilka Majhi and Birsa Munda were the main leaders of this Munda rebellion. Let me tell you something about the Tilka Majhi and Birsa Munda. The history says that Tilka Majhi was born in 11th February. Tilka Majhi was born in 11th February 1750 in Sultanganj district of Bihar. Tilka Majhi, he was born in a Santhal family in Sultanganj districts in Bihar, Sultanganj of Bihar. He was born in 11th February 1750 and he died on 13 January. He died in 13 January 1785. So at the age of 35, Tilka Majhi was arrested and killed. He says that British officers, they arrested him in the year 1785 and he was hanged roadside in Bhagalpur. So he started this Munda rebellion. Later on, Birsa Munda, he was an efficient leader. He led this rebellion. Birsa Munda, history says that on 30 June he called all the peoples and around 50,000 people in a meeting. He called a meeting, around 50,000 people joined this meeting and it was also called as the Hul. So this Munda rebellion also is named as the Hul Vidro. Hul Vidro, around 50,000 people joined together in the meeting when Birsa Munda called the meeting. Now let me tell you about the Birsa Munda. It says that Birsa Munda was born in 15th November in 1875 in Ranchi. Birsa Munda, who was belonged to Ranchi and born in 15 November in 1875 and he died on 9 June. He died on 9 June 1900. So Birsa Munda, who was born in Ranchi in 15th November 1875 and died in 1900 in Ranchi Central Jail at the age of 25. So Birsa Munda, when he called a meeting, around 50,000 people joined and they led the revolt. The main reason for this was the encroachment of the land by the outside. Actually, in this land of this Munda people, especially in Jharkhand, where the Munda people lived, the British officers, they called outsiders, the other people, to cultivate the lands where the Munda peoples live. So when outsiders were called to live in their area, and they started encroaching the land, they started occupying the lands outsider. This made the Munda people to rebel against the British government and the outside, because these Munda people, they considered their lands as their mother, and therefore they did not want any outsider to encroach their land, to take their land, and therefore to restore back their motherland, to get back their lands. This Munda people rebelled against the outsiders, the jamindars and the British officer. And this, it says that Tilka Maji, who started this rebellion, it says that it is the first rebellion. He was the first person to rebel against the British government, even 70 years before the Mangal Pandey. When Mangal Pandey revolted against the British government, even 70 years before that, Tilka Maji had first time took the weapons on his hand and rebelled against the British government. And after his death, as I told you, that he was hanged roadside in Bhagalpur. And after that, this Birsa Munda, who was a very much young person, and he led the rebellion. When he called thousands of people, around 50,000 people joined, and finally, and this rebellion also was came to an end when Birsa Munda was arrested and put in a Ranchi jail, and he finally died in Ranchi jail. So this rebellion also came to suppression. The British, they suppressed this rebellion, and we see this in all the cases. What happens? Finally, the rebellions was suppressed by the British, because the main reason was these tribal peoples, they mainly fought with their old weapons, their bows and arrows, and they could not stand against the sophisticated guns and other weapons used by the British military, and therefore all this rebellion finally came to the suppression. So students, that you understood this, these were the tribal peoples who fought in different parts of the eastern India. These were the tribal peoples lived in the eastern India and fought the revolts against the British in different times in different part of India. Later on, we will see in the next class the revolt which were fought in the southern parts of India and other parts of India. So that's all for today. Thank you very much.